You see, the doctors, it only came because we let the fathers, the monsters, we let them rule. But now, all we have to do is make a breadsheet.
Sam the Anthro. Sam the Anthro. That's Sam the Anthro on Twitter. SAMTHEANTHRO at Sam the Anthro as an anthropologist, and on YouTube at youtube.com/Sam the Anthro. You guessed it. Another leftist content creator like Lucky Black Cat from last week. This time, as her name suggests, focusing on anthropology. I love anthropology. I mean, if you were to ask me what my top 5 interests are, which you're not doing, granted, well, I guess you are kind of doing that in a way because you're listening to the show. Breadsheet. Featuring, well, more than featuring, hosted by me, Hoss Bossman. Like I said, you're listening to Breadsheet, my show, and my fake name is Hoss Bossman. It's so great to have you here with me in my safe space. So, anthropology, I love it. I also love leftists and the content they create. People hate that word, content. It sounds very cold, I know, but anyhow, happy belated birthday to at Sam the Anthro. Y'all, legit, her videos are awesome. She's like a natural on camera, very watchable, and those brains, real smart. Funny, interesting. Seriously, go check her out on the YouTubes and follow her on Twitter. That's at Sam the Anthro, both on YouTube and Twitter. And like I was saying before, I love anthropology. One little piece of business before I get to this brand new segment on Breadsheet. I'm just going to go ahead and say right now that this is part 2 of the Chris Crofton interview, and this part is even better than the first part. I don't know how this keeps happening when I do these 2-part interviews. The second half, the real juicy stuff comes in, and he says we just go back and forth between super legitimately profound stuff to like talking about dumping out old rusty cans you got in an estate sale. So look forward to that. That is today's exciting conclusion, the 2-part Chris Crofton interview. He is on Twitter at The Crofton Show. He is on Instagram at Chris_Crofton. And he has a great album called Hello, It's Me. I'm going to write out of the show with a song from that album. I haven't decided which one yet, but it's going to be one of them from Hello, It's Me, 2018 album. It's available at all the music places. Seriously, go check it out. One of my favorite new albums I've heard in quite some time. And he is just fantastic on Twitter and always putting up videos where he talks about bear pee and stuff like that. It's just good old-fashioned, wholesome fun. Oh, he also has a column in the Nashville scene called Advice King, which is really fantastic. He's a great writer. So he's just a multi-talented man, a true Renaissance man, if you will. So this is going to be another short intro because this interview is just so boss. Might even be a shorter intro than last time. But I'm Hoss Bossman. I'm on Twitter at Hoss_Bossman and also Instagram at Hoss_Bossman. Please give me some support on the Patreons at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. A little tiny bit of Hoss news here, just an update. I am working on a new video that is turning out really good about money and politics. It's almost done. I also want to do a response video. This will be the first time I've done that. Trying, just diving in, swimming around in that YouTube space. An appropriate metaphor I just used because I'm doing a response video to a video somebody did on, Maggie Mae Fish did on My Octopus Teacher, which I highly recommend. Fascinating documentary on Netflix. She didn't like it, and I have a rebuttal. I had a different experience with it. Not trying to start a beef or nothing, but wanted to share my experience with that, and start a dialogue about how we interpret art through our own lens. And I definitely went into it with a bias. I love nature documentaries and have sort of a I don't know if I'd call it a spiritual something about communing with nature. So I was viewing it through that lens. She might not have been, but I think, it could be a very interesting dialogue. But anyway, like I was saying before, I love anthropology and I have a captive audience. So in honor of @SamTheAnthro, here's a brand new segment called Hoss's Top 5. That's right, new segment, Hoss's Top 5. This week's Top 5 list is Hoss's favorite ologies. Coming in at number 5, we got psychology. Originally, I had this one as cartography, but that's firmly not an ology. And I don't mind bending the rules, but for the first item on a brand new segment, cartography is cool though. Making maps seems hard, and it's pretty useful. I love old maps and globes. If I were real rich and could buy stuff, I'd buy a super old, awesome globe that's like wrong in a bunch of places. Those are fun. Like the Eradfell globe, something like that. The newest globe still made before old Chrissy Colombo invented these United Snakes. It was made in 1492 before Columbus had gotten back to Europe. So yeah, check that out. Okay, number 5 is psychology. Love it. Interesting subject. And
number 4,
apology, because it's a nice thing to do. We're all about spreading that love here on Breadsheet. At number 3 is philology, which is a subcategory of linguistics I don't know much about, but I think it deals with written language more than spoken language. I might be wrong or oversimplifying that, maybe. I guess I should also add etymology. That can be like a number 3, just like the history of a word, sort of, like how a word evolved over time. One of my favorite Google searches to do is, insert word followed by etymology, learning about where a word came from. It's cool and fun. Number 2 is dedicated to the big guy upstairs, whom I know is a big fan of all life on Earth because he freaking created it. It's biology, yo. The way living animals are, made of stuff. It just does all kinds of interesting things. And now, here we are at number 1. Anthropology. Study of people and stuff, which is what Sam the Anthro's YouTube channel is all about. And finally, number 0, paleontology, fossil study. And who doesn't love that? Dinosaurs, etc., old extinct animals and, fossilized material that has replaced their bones in the same shape as their bones. All right, I guess that's going to do it for this week's edition of Hoss's Top 5.
All engine running. Liftoff.
All right, what did I say? I said this is going to be a short intro, and it is a short intro. I interviewed David Griscom of TMBS, The Michael Brooks Show, and also he has a weekly recurring segment on Give Them an Argument. Ben Burgess, friend of the show's podcast, one of his podcasts. That is fantastic, called Outlaws and Revolutionaries. He is a Texas guy, huge country music fan, so we get into talking about music and art and the power of music and country, and talk a lot about like communicating with some of the down home folks, the working man, who he and I sort of bonded or saw eye to eye on that, coming from very firmly not just working class backgrounds, but from very southern working class backgrounds. Very country working class backgrounds. But yeah, David Griscom, interviewed him. So next week's episode is going to be that. Haven't done a mini-sode in a while, so I'll probably be doing that soon, maybe after this next week's episode. Kind of, saving up my takes, powering up for a rad-ass mini-sode. For now, just expelling the energy on the interviews and the intros and the YouTube videos. Also, real quick, just in case I don't remember for next week's episode, which you should just go ahead and start getting pumped for that. Like I said, that's David Griscom. Scream about it from the rooftops, maybe even the utmost peaks of the grandest mountains as they bow before the sea, perhaps at the summit of human experience, where love and generosity intersect with the potentialities of infinity. What was I going to say? I thought I had something else floating around in the old Nagaroo, but I'll just insert it with that robot voice, which hopefully doesn't annoy y'all too much.
Ooh, I remember now what I felt I needed to say. We insinuate in the interview that Sam Sater isn't an artist, which is not true. Sam started as a stand-up comic, if I remember correctly, and that's definitely an art form. But also, there's an art to hosting Majority Report. I don't think he'd call it art. It's primarily punditry, not that those two things are mutually exclusive, but, it's on a spectrum, like so many other things in this world. I'm on that same spectrum, like 75% toward the artist side and 25% toward the pundit side. Sam Sater is kind of the other way around, as Majority Report is definitely more of an informational analysis type show than what I'm doing here. So yeah, just wanted to state that, for the record, that we're in no shade. Okay, thank you for your attention. Back to us.
I love y'all. Please enjoy this part 2 of my wonderful, wonderful chat with Chris Crofton. He is a true delight. If you haven't heard part 1, it is the most recent episode. Go check that out. Not this one. This is the most recent episode, but most recent one before this one, which is part 1, called Hot Croft Buns. And it is thanks to Chris Yamaguchi Main for supplying that pun. But yeah, it's just fantastic, and I think part 2 is even better, but you want to listen to both, get the whole story there. I'm at Haas_Bossman on Twitter and Instagram, patreon.com/Haas_Bossman to support me. I would greatly appreciate it. Put a lot of work into this stuff, and I don't have a job, so I need money. And I'm going to be selling my blood soon, probably. I really am just trying to get into a position where I can give my blood away for free. That is success to me. It's where I can afford to just give away free blood. But yeah, Haas_Bossman. I'm Haas Bossman. Check me out go to www.haas.fun. That's my website. Go to bit.ly/HossTube. That's my YouTube channel. So yeah, I love y'all. Enjoy this interview with Mr. Chris Crofton. Oh, and you got to hear his song is called Cold Brew Got Me Like, and you are about to hear it now, followed by my interview with him. Love you. Bye.
And I decided at the last minute that I should add clips to these. So here's a reprise. I'll do a reprise for Investigate Joe Rogan next time he comes on. I spent like 8 hours on this somehow.
Politicians are not qualified to be political. Artists are. Cold brew got me like, cold brew got me like, cold brew got me like. Metal detecting, metal detecting, metal detecting, metal detecting. Mudlarking, 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 mudlarking. Cold brew got me like, cold brew got me like, cold brew got me like, cold brew got me like. Magnet fishing, chill, chill, magnet fishing, chill, chill. Mudlark, Nicola, white, Mudlark, chill, 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 Nicola, white, Mudlark, Nicola. chill bill, metal detecting, mudlarking, magnet fishing, chill bill, magnet fishing, metal detecting, mudlarking.
Politicians are not qualified to be political. Artists are.
Nicola White Mudlark, Nicola White Mudlark.
I thought I was a Republican when I grew up.
Really?
I was raised by the Catholic Church to believe that homosexuality was wrong. I mean, these are things I had to find out were incorrect, and that was by leaving the wealthy community. But I have friends who stayed, and they never grew because they never heard a different perspective. You have to, I don't even know. I just mean that I don't even know what I was saying. I kind of got lost.
Well, I mean, I know what you mean. You never really know if wealthy people, they don't know if they're actually making connections with other human beings, which is just such a crucial part of being like an animal that has evolved to be social, like fundamentally. And
yeah, so that would drive you insane. Yeah, if you didn't even know the people you're socializing with were really your friends. I mean, that's kind of undermines your feeling of safety. So you have this like sort of safety on one hand, and then this complete lack of safety on the other. But because, everyone around you would stab you or take your wallet the minute you died. But yeah, it's like, luckily I went through some weird situations, or I don't know how to say it, but I bounced around I met different types of people. Like wealthy people tend to stay. And I don't mean to, I hate the expression, just wealthy people
Mm-hmm.
who hoard resources. Let's put it that way. People who hoard resources and who are addicted to, who are materialistic, just aren't very good at learning. And you have to learn, because I'm a different person. I was not always this person who understood that happiness comes from having just enough resources and then helping other people, and all these types of things that I didn't know were the real basis of life. The real warmth of life is interactions with people and helping people and being friends with people, and it has nothing to do with stuff, But so that's why I'm so sick of celebrating, idiots like Elon Musk. I mean, it's just, I actually consider him to be an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people, like, I don't care. I'm not to say he's not a talented person, but the way he's putting it to use, in my opinion, makes him an idiot. And there has to be a perspective shift where people understand that these people are not people to be looked up to. They're actually people who have problems, who need all these resources. That's not healthy. That's an example of lack of evolution.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would say us being a social species, that might be the most important thing. And if you're lacking that, then you are unhealthy. And there are different types of intelligence, and social intelligence might be the most important type of intelligence to have if you are a member of a social species. And I think money does, or hoarding resources, or the insecurity that either comes from or causes, definitely is just detrimental to social intelligence, developing that. And, how long have you been sober?
8 years. 9 years in January.
Okay, awesome.
9 years in January. Thanks.
I've had my issues with, being a musician and going out had my own issues with like substance abuse in the past.
Yeah.
I've been
pretty,
much. I never went like completely sober, but, I drink once or twice a year now, for the past like 4 or 5 years. And I used to think that I needed to drink. I'm sure you can relate to this. You feel like you need it to do like just about anything. And since I've let go of that and like really tried to go about my life being sober the vast majority of the time, like I feel those connections with other people a lot more strongly, because they are sort of artificial when you like are deadening yourself all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful for my sobriety. I also have done AA, and I know I'm not supposed to mention it. I'll say 12-step program. But, I'm a big fan of that. I was going to do it by myself because that's just the way alcoholics are. They hate authority for whatever fucking reason, and they hate being told what to do. And, luckily I ended up in a 12-step program because it helped me immensely just to talk to other people who have the same.
You're breaking up again just a bit. All right.
Yeah, let me go outside. I don't know what with you. I don't know why it's just. I never understand how the internet works. Like it works, and then it just. Well, what am I saying? I don't know how the internet works at all.
Yeah,
I don't even know what's happening. How is this even happening? Should I sit outside or something?
I mean, if you want to.
Let me see. Let me see if I can go somewhere else real quick. I'm just going to walk to this other building. Speaking of wealth, who cares? I can't say wealth anymore. I'm going to barf. But anyway, my boss has a lot of big yard and a lot of buildings. I'm just trying to find a good signal I'm on this podcast and I'm trying to find a good signal. No. You want to be in here? Yes, you're fine. No, you're fine. You're fine. Anyway, I'm just going to go back to my house. If it freezes, I guess we're.
Well, I mean, you can. I think you were talking about being grateful for, talking sobriety and however much you would want to talk about that, or are comfortable with talking about
just
that.
That's fine. Oh yeah, just that 12-step program helped me a ton. But I had a realization. I got lucky. I got lucky, and I had a moment of sanity that was definitely kind of magical. I mean, I'd been an alcoholic from forever, and I was aware of it, but I would not say it. I was interested in saying that I was a person who had trouble with drinking, or I had a drinking problem. I could say that, all kinds of things. But, it took joining a 12-step program where I finally said that liberating thing. I'm an alcoholic. I mean, clearly it defined my fucking life. And alcohol does not want you to say you're an alcoholic, because they know alcohol, and I call alcohol they, because that's how prominent it was in my life. It ran my life, so the alcohol whispers in your ear, don't say you're an alcoholic, because then you can't drink any. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you think you shouldn't be drinking, don't ever say you're fully an alcoholic, because then once you say that, you're fucked. You can never go back. As long as you say you have a drinking problem, then that leaves the door open for you to drink again. So saying I was an alcoholic out loud is a huge thing for me. It's stupid that it's such a big deal, because it was so obvious to everybody, and to me, pretty much to me too, but I would not admit it. And, finally my girlfriend was like, who's not my girlfriend anymore, but we broke up for other reasons, but she was like, I can't see you anymore if you drink like this, and I was like, okay, I'll quit. And I just knew when I said it, I meant it. And I never had ever said that before, or meant it, and I just realized that I had to go with it, because I just had this, thank God, I got exhausted, basically. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. My body it just wasn't working. It hadn't been working for years. I was really unhappy. I was having it just every time I got drunk, I would have 3 days of depression where I could really just didn't want to get out of bed every time I got drunk. And then as soon as I started to feel better, I would drink again. And so it just was, I used to be able to drink every day when I was younger. And that was like the only way it worked, quote unquote.
Yeah, I know what you mean. To stay in the perpetual state,
yes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes, which is a crazy state, which is like, it's another thing that power culture accepts huge amounts of drinking. So many politicians are alcoholics. You see it on their faces. That's why their faces are all swollen in weird ways and stuff. They're alcoholics. I mean, that's part of that culture. You don't want alcoholics making decisions. I can tell you that. You really don't, because if they ever got sober, they would find out, oh my God, like, I'm a crazy person. I was a crazy person. I mean, there's parts of you you can be a good person and be an alcoholic, but it's still not as easy as it is if you're not drinking. If you're a good person, alcohol can make you pretty dysfunctional. And when you get sober again, if you're a good person, it comes out in a big way, and it's kind of fun. And that's what I feel like I'm experiencing. And I'm grateful for it, and I had to go through a lot of times where I was a rude punk rock, filthy mouth comedian who thought that was like edgy, thought that was, I had to go through a lot of stuff. So I'm glad to be where I am. I feel lucky. And for me, a big piece of that was getting the alcohol out of my life. So, if anyone's having trouble with alcohol, you can reach out to me.
bestofbread@gmail.com.
Happy to send you some resources. And
you broke up just a pinch there. What did you say the email address was?
Oh, Best of Bread, which is the name of my old radio show. bestofbread@gmail.com. BESTOFBREAD, based on the album Best of Bread by the band Bread, which I highly recommend. I love bread.
I should get into bread. This podcast is called Breadsheet.
I saw that. What is that all about?
I did it as a placeholder because I, made this like minute-long trailer. I was like, fucking, I'm going to do this goddamn. I've been wanting to do a podcast for like 10 years. And I finally like made a trailer and put it out there so that like people would kind of hold me to it. And so I just kind of used it as a placeholder, because I had been ranting about, this was like a few months ago when the pandemic was, I mean, it's obviously still, worse than it was. But
yeah.
I was like ranting. I would rant a lot about how, like, can't somebody just make a fucking like spreadsheet and delegate, like, different jobs for, like, how hard is it to just like hire the best people to handle this thing? It seems like nobody's even fucking trying. And, so my shorthand for that was to make a
Breadsheet.
So it was a placeholder, but then people seemed to, when I told them I was going to change it, they were like, no, I like it. It's like weird and easy to remember. So that's, other than like, I guess a breadsheet could be like a spreadsheet designed to like divide up all the bread or the resources evenly among people. So, maybe it could mean that.
Or a sheet made of bread for your bed, where you just fucking sit in bed and eat your covers.
Yeah. Would you say that like getting sober 8-9 years ago was something that like made you a little bit more politically aware or socially enhance your sense of empathy, something like that?
Very much so. I mean, I used to be, it just helped me understand my anger better and pull it apart. So it was like the anger I had toward, it's just like you carry all these resentments with you from childhood, and you sort of just start sorting through which part of your anger is righteous and which part of your anger is dysfunction, which part of your anger is because you're angry at, like how much of this is being angry because I didn't have some childhood that I think I wish I had, or, and just getting down to the real, just sorting through your feelings. I think being sober, being drunk, it turns out you just don't have access to your feelings, which is why you like it. Probably one part of it. You might be, it's an allergy. I really do believe that, because I don't think that most people drink and have this amazing experience like I did when I first drank. It was just like this transcendent, beer, it was just changed my life. It was the first time I ever felt whole, that I don't think that happens for everybody, thankfully. But, I do think like that eventually you really don't know I knew I was mad, but all my other anger was like crossing into my righteous anger. So it was like, I just was pissed. And people were just like, oh, he's just mad about everything, And it turns out that if I take the alcohol away, then I can figure out what's righteous anger, what is childhood, I wish my childhood was different anger, and try and get rid of, try and just like understand where you're coming from. Alcohol for some reason makes it very difficult for the person who's drinking to understand exactly where they're coming from. And when it comes to politics, clarity is kind of everything, because you don't want to tell people to fuck off, and you don't want to tell people that they're dumb, because there, but for the grace of God, go you. All these people who are so stupid are usually just people who didn't have access to things that you had access to because you had more resources. You too could be a dummy. That's what to remember. Most of these people are you, except they just didn't run into the right people who changed their perspectives. They stayed in their childhood bubble. You have to be somewhat understanding that you were not born woke. You did not come out of the womb anyway. If you were in the wrong circumstances, you probably could be a racist also. I'm not saying that there aren't some people who are just bad apple people. Like maybe there are some people who have some brain problems who are just violent from birth, but usually atmosphere, nurture has something to do with it. It's not just nature, it's nature and nurture. So if you happen to be lucky enough to have good information and be woke as a result of that, I think it's a nice idea to try to make other people aware of that information. But constantly gloating about how woke you are and calling other people idiots is extremely short-sighted if you're, really serious about changing the world. You're not going to change it by just gloating about how great your information is. Because I feel like most people are kind, they just don't have very good information,
I absolutely strongly agree with that. And, that's definitely something, especially in the Trump era, that we've seen. I think a lot of people on the left have this like, they're racist, they're irredeemable. I think the vast majority of people really, it's really born out of ignorance, and their sense of empathy maybe is a little bit screwy, but I think that we need to be better about communicating with even those people who we think are quote, too far gone, which can be really difficult because a lot of those people are assholes.
If my ex-girlfriend hadn't taken pity on me in college and told me some stuff I needed to hear because she loved me and understood that I just didn't know what I was talking about because of where I grew up. You know, I would have not, if she just called me an idiot and broken up with me, I probably would have just ended up even more resentful and more dug in with my fake republicanism that I grew up with. Like, luckily, she blew my mind with some information that I just didn't know about. Like, I don't have to get into specifics, but I can. I mean, basically, I grew up in the Catholic Church, you know, and that is a homophobic organization, and they teach you that homosexuality is a sin. And I grew up in an area where that was not something that was discussed beyond that. It was the kind of area in the 1980s where homosexuality was largely under the rug, and there were no gay people anywhere, as far as I knew in my town. You know, because it was not safe for them to be gay in that environment. But that led me to believe like there were very few gay people in the world. You know what I mean? Like in my bubble, it was like, oh, I guess there aren't any gay people anyway. So maybe it is true that they're sinners or whatever, because they must be some kind of weirdo because I don't see any of them around here. Mm-hmm. You know, unbeknownst to me, they're all around me, you know, because because of where I grew up, and, you know, it had been an atmosphere where you could believe there were no gay people because it was a stupid atmosphere. So, or, you know, violent or dangerous atmosphere to be gay in. So I go to college and my girlfriend's talking to me, and she's grew up in a very diverse community in St. Louis. And her mother was like her mother didn't call herself woke because that was not a thing, but her mother was, you know, very like open about talking about sex and about, and her mother was very the kind person who loved gay people, and she was aware of gay people, and she was aware of how AIDS was transmitted and all kinds of things. And I went to college, and I was talking to her about, she said something about AIDS or something about gay people, and I was like, well, yeah, they're no, you know, I don't like them or something, you know. And she was like, what? I mean, she was like, what? And I was like, well, they started AIDS, and she was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, and at that moment, I realized I did not know what the fuck I was talking about. Everything fell apart for me in that moment. I realized that I knew nothing. I knew an attitude and vague information I got from growing up in a wealthy community and from a Catholic church. And all of a sudden, she said to me, she just said, do you think if homosexuality is a choice, as the Catholic Church, you know, preaches, do you think that these children or teenagers would choose a way of life that guarantees them a harder road for kicks? That's what the concept is. That's the Catholic concept, that this is an aberration by a weak person who just likes crazy sex. And I just, all of a sudden, I was like, no, you are right. You are right. And I don't know what I'm talking about. However, if she said to me in that moment, fuck you, you homophobic piece of shit, you idiot.
Maybe it would have just pushed you in the other direction.
I don't know what would have happened, but I was grateful that she loved me enough to say, no, honey, you have gotten very bad information, and you are a good person, and I'm going to tell you the real information. And it changed me right there, right in that moment, because I realized that I had never had a serious discussion about this with anybody, that where I grew up, it was just this idea that everyone was straight, and all these nonsense beliefs that still exist in this country all over the place. And if you don't get out of that bubble, and if when someone you meet is still in that bubble and they say something to you and you just say, fuck you, you homophobic idiot, you're losing a chance that person might actually respond to some good information.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, it's not necessarily going to be that simple. Like, you know, you said that you were would describe yourself as a sensitive person. I definitely would, like growing up. And, you know, it really did mostly just take the information and I think for some people that's the case. It's like they literally just need to be disabused of whatever their misconceptions were. And I think but it's not going to be, people should remember, you know, you need a level of patience that maybe isn't required for some people like me and you, but need to understand that like all the information that people have and all their opinions have been filtered through a very toxic culture where, I always say like this modern marketing was invented in America. Like, why would you not think that like all the cultural mores from things like, homosexuality being an aberration to, just the fact that like this state of wealth inequality is like this is like the best we can do, and your imagination can't really go beyond that point because everything that has been filtered through that viewpoint. Yeah,
I don't think that everybody's going to have some real, like that was a specific, we were already in a liberal arts college. I had grown up with a pretty good education. I mean, not about homosexuality, obviously, but I mean, that was not something that was discussed. As I said, it just wasn't a topic. There was no way to evolve on that subject because it just didn't get talked about at all, So having that conversation with my girlfriend was really the first time I'd ever really examined my real feelings about that topic and many other topics, which I just had never examined because it just, that's not a space that there's no examination of shit in wealthy communities. It's just, it's just do good at sports, make money, drink alcohol. Those are the things that happen in those communities. Evolution is not on the menu. It's just about like, we have resources. We have tons of them. You just have to play your role and you will also have resources. That's what's going on in those communities. That's it. Just follow the rules and you also will be safe. That's all that's happening. No discussions of anything intellectual. It's just like, we got a lot of resources. If you play the game and do certain things certain ways and don't think a lot, you will also have resources. And that's the name of the game. So yeah, it was just thank God I got to college, who knows? I could be a Republican still. When I grew up, I was told I was a Republican. Everyone was a Republican. So I thought I was a Republican. If you don't know about anything else and your social circle just is the minute you express anything sensitive, they call you gay, there's no room to evolve in those settings. So like, you have to realize that if you did get to go to college and maybe learn some shit, you're lucky, because there's a lot of people who didn't get to. And so maybe don't call them fucking idiots because a lot of times they just are underprivileged.
Yeah. It's just going to close them off more and make it more
and I'm not, and like what you said though, Kevin, it's not, it's not going to be like, I was set up. I was a nice person who gotten bad information and I got some good information and I changed right away, but that's not necessarily how it's going to go. But certainly putting out good information is really the name of the game.
And I think that the gay issue is, I've seen that, in the past 20 years since I was like in, high school, I've seen that issue like just completely turn around as far as like, gay marriage. Yes. That was like one of the biggest things that, if you were a liberal or on the left in any way when, in the early 2000s was like, that was like one of the main issues that you had to argue with right wingers about. And it turned around so quickly. I think partially because gay people started feeling more comfortable to come out. So then more people just knew gay people and knew they weren't like these weirdo sex fiends like they had been like made out to be. Yeah. But also like it's especially in America. And I think just for the most part, people have this general belief. I think the most common opinion is like, hey, I don't care what anybody else does as long as it's not hurting anybody and I can do what I want and I don't want to hurt anybody. I think most people are at least good people to that extent. And it's really fucking hard to have that viewpoint and to be critical of gay people for some reason at the same time. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's an example of a cultural shift that came about from people putting out good information, including being honest, daring to be honest about their sexuality. That's that's good information. That's daring to do that, but that changed perspectives. Yes. Those people who came out at a time when it was so difficult are heroes because they put out, I am gay. I am a nice person. Now, how do you reconcile your hatred of me? That's that's like me talking about psychiatric medication. I mean, like, it's not the same. It's much easier for me to talk about psychiatric medication, I realize. But I just mean, like, I always have enjoyed saying, like, I'm on Zoloft, because then everyone else in the room says, oh, fuck, I'm on this, I'm on that, I'm on this, It's like, these conversations are how people destigmatize things that, whatever, basically you shake off your childhood. And if you have a great childhood where you had some really wise parents that told you some really good information, and then, more power to you. Just pass it along, but don't just sit around and talk about how great you are because you had good parents or grew up in a good environment, but just pass along, whatever. Be nice. I mean, be nice. Being mean doesn't really, and that was the thing about alcohol too, is it just made my resentments were all tied up together. So I couldn't figure out what was righteous and what was just fucking petulance. So my stand-up was just so fucking ineffective because I was mixing like actually good social commentary with just adolescent dirtiness. And, just like, it just didn't make any sense. I was like, oh, this guy's got some good ideas, but like, I don't know why is he talking about pussy juice for so long? You know what I mean? Like, that was the sort of problem, and I thought that was like transgressive. I was like, people need to hear pussy juice because that'll make people talk more honestly or something, when it's just fucking absolutely stupid. It's just stupid, and it's diluting all the good stuff I was saying because it's like, this guy's a teenager. Alcohol kept me with one foot in being a teenager.
Oh yeah. No, exactly what you mean. Yeah. This sense of being, especially being into like punk music and stuff. And, you're talking about like Fugazi and this alternative sort of thing where it's like just being edgy in and of itself, which, can be, I guess, like useful depending on what you're being edgy about. But it's like, I had to really grow out of that, like being an atheist and being like an asshole about it. And
right. Yes. Bill Maher is an example of a person who's like, not evolved. He's got some, I certainly agree with what a lot of what I used to watch him and like sort of take him seriously, and I but his anger, his arrogance ruins everything. I mean, it's just his good points are so, you just, he's an example of that kind of person that's just like, I know the answers. Well, then just pass them along in a nice way. Stop being so smug about it. It's just there's no point. You're really not going to win any converts. You're just, it feels good to say, yeah, I'm an atheist. It's like, good for you. Like, like that's your hang up. Like, I'm glad it's like, it's just not helpful to just constantly berate people who have different opinions than you, I'm not saying that you shouldn't fucking, if someone's like, marching around with a tiki torch, then you should fucking take it and wrap it around their neck. But that's a different.
Absolutely.
I mean, and then talk to them about sensitive topics while they're tied up on the ground.
Yeah, there are, limits. And, I do think there is something to the idea of like, we shouldn't be tolerant of intolerance, but no, that should be the main rule. And there are some people that are beyond help.
If someone's running around in camouflage with an AK-47, they might be to talk them down. Hey, listen, I have some really good information for you about homosexuality. That's probably not going to work.
Yeah, and I think the people I've heard, people who are activists, gay activists, LGBTQ in general activists in the 80s and onwards, say that like, hey, a lot of the way that not to oversimplify it, but like, the left, especially with the social media, Twitter culture and stuff, can be very like mean and rude and write people off. And I've heard, I think it was Glenn Greenwald, talk about how like, the way that we made homosexuality went from this like taboo that everybody, like you couldn't even talk about to like where we are today wasn't through berating people and being like mean to them. It was through patience, understanding, and empathy. And it seems to have worked pretty well so far. We still have a ways to go, of course, but. Oh, yeah.
I mean, well, those people are, civil rights activists, openly gay people at a time when that was not, safe. Those are the people that, just by example of standing up and being a good person, that just has an impact because, you just, anyway, it has much more to do with being your best self than it does attacking other people and whatever you're trying to get done.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, trying to be mindful of your time. We've been talking for a while now, but I mean, I'll keep you here as long as you are willing to stay.
My phone's going to die pretty soon, so I think maybe we got about 10 minutes or something like that.
Okay, that should be good. So this art and politics thing, you being an artist, and I think there is like usually a sensitivity that creative people have and maybe a sense of empathy. Basically, my theory or, hypothesis on this that I think like the importance of art in, a political movement or trying to like get, awaken people politically is that it serves to expand the imagination and to expand people's sense of empathy, whether it's, movies or novels or music or whatever. And, that is so, both of those things are so important for like, if we want to imagine and try to build a better world together, we have to have imagination and empathy. Right. And I guess, so that's like, basically my thought on the topic. And I'd just like to get your thoughts a little bit on the relationship between, music and politics or art and politics. Like, do you listen to a lot of music, or have you listened to in the past, like music that is political, or have you maybe written music that is like explicitly political? I know your album, Hello, It's Me, which I'm a huge fan of, and now I'm trying to like squeeze a lot of stuff in. Yeah, absolutely love it. And I think, as with like the poetry, the sort of minimalistic songwriting style is sort of almost like hypnotic. And I love just every song on that record is so great.
Oh, thanks. You're going to love the new one, man. The new one's so fucking good. But I can't put it out yet because, well, I'm not waiting till like I can tour or whatever. That was the original thought, but I think I want to get it out, but the new record is so beautiful. I mean, I'm so proud of it. And I would say I'm more, a little more political. I mean, not political, but I'm more, there's a song on it called Side Effects about, like psychiatric medication, which is, it's not super, it's, for me, that's like an expansion of, subject matter. I feel more comfortable writing about more types of things, or trying to write about more types of things now that I'm not drunk. I'm able to edit and have a second thought as opposed to going with my first thought kind of thing. I listened to Fugazi, Fugazi was political. Fugazi talked about how homophobia was bad. Fugazi, Public Enemy was huge for me. The band Public Enemy. I mean, I basically, I told my mother white people sucked. I came back from college. Basically, it wasn't even college. It was right before college I started listening to them. But pretty much for my mother, I'm sure it was like I went to college and then came back and was like, America sucks, and white people are the devil.
Yeah, getting like I was radicalized. Yeah, Prince
was probably the biggest. For me, Prince hit the suburbs like like a fucking pride parade. Fucking Prince was like the most mind-blowing person to me growing up, and I loved music. And so my Prince, if I'd growing up where I grew up, if Prince walked down the street of my town, everyone would have been like, made fun of him.
Yeah.
But music, like for me, when I heard When Doves Cry, it was like the best song I ever heard in my whole life on the radio. Most of them, I didn't have an older brother or sister, so I mostly was listening to just the radio and top 40 radio. Or, I wasn't listening to whatever it was. When I heard When Doves Cry, it changed my life because I just never heard a song that good before. And so then I fell in love with Prince, and Prince is, Prince was political by his existence.
Yeah, for sure.
He was a multiracial, 5 foot tall. He had so many things working against him in the culture of 1983 or 1980, or he started in the late 70s. And that was a fuck for him to be running around in high heels and leg warmers and shit in the late 70s. Like, fuck, he was taking his life in his hands. He was a huge. So So art for me was like, artists became this accidentally political thing for me, even if they weren't trying to be overtly political, because it was like Prince for me blew my whole world up. It just really, I fell in love with his music, and you can't help but, I don't know, there's revolution inherent, well, Prince and the Revolution, but I mean, there's revolution inherent to Prince. I mean, he's a revolutionary motherfucker, whether he wanted to be or not. Explicitly, it doesn't matter. His politics were, built in. I mean, the man was a fearless, inspirational person, and more than anybody I heard about in the fucking Federalist Papers or whatever. I grew up, if you grew up in a wealthy suburb, they'll be like, the biggest heroes you're supposed to have are like, I don't know, John Adams or something. And then Prince comes along and you're like, what the fuck are we talking about? I mean, it's a perspective shift. I'm like, this is life. I'm going to put on a weird outfit and fucking get laid and love everybody. You know what I mean? I mean, Prince was just an inspiration, so he changed my perspective,
like, and then you're willing to like accept or not normalizing, but that's there's I think, speaking of where we started, where I brought up E.E. Cummings as a poet to sort of compare your style to, he I think it's an E.E. Cummings quote, something along the lines of like, in a world that is so, or like a society that's like conformist like ours, like one of the most like radical things you can do is just like honor who you are and, be yourself. And I think that is something about Prince that's like, he didn't have to explicitly say, he moved the window as to like what people felt comfortable, how they felt comfortable expressing themselves. And I think just that's what most great artists do.
Art has a way of, music especially, if you're making good music, you've got somebody's ear. That's why I've never fucking subscribed to this idea that like this stupid idea that artists aren't allowed to be political. It's like they should be more political than politicians. Politicians are not qualified to be political. Artists are. It's such the opposite. It's like, I want to hear the political opinions of musicians because they're the ones that are in touch with, I'm about to say something completely crazy, but they're in touch with, they're in touch with a part of the universe that's really beautiful, and politicians are in touch with a part of the universe that's really drab and awful. I always want to hear politics from artists. I mean, they're the only people I will accept them from in some ways. That's not true. I'm a big Sam Cedar fan.
Me too.
But it's like, I'm just saying the idea that art is political. The best art is made by kind people, and that's political on its own. The best art is made by sensitive people. I mean, I'm not talking about, there's a lot of music that isn't particularly, inspiring, Sure, but I like, but yeah, that sort of just seeing Prince, I was like, just saw the possibility of life. Like, I could just dance around if I want, wearing like a purple velvet suit. Mm-hmm. Well, in my town, they told me I have to be a stockbroker or a lawyer, and there's nothing else on the table. So that was just like, oh my God, everything I learned for the last 14 years growing up on this lacrosse field is horseshit, and that's political because the world does not need any more stockbrokers. It needs more high kicking people in purple velvet suits, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's, that might be the quote of the episode.
Here, I'll tell you something real quick. I can also plug my phone in if you had something you really wanted to do for 10 minutes, but I'll have to take my headphones off to charge it.
We can wrap up. I just had a couple of things, and if you're like at 1% or something, then
I'll just tell you the poetry story really quick. So in college, I was drunk as fuck. Recently found out I wasn't homophobic. I was really feeling wild. I felt like coming from New Canaan, Connecticut, I felt like something was changing, So I was like, I want to get involved in creative stuff, So I want to write, maybe I'm going to try out a poetry class, So I accidentally signed up for a 400 level poetry class, which is the highest level. I mean, it's like a senior level. I was a freshman. No, I think it was a sophomore. And, I just was like, well, I signed up for this class. It was like an advanced poetry class. The teacher was this woman named Elizabeth Libby, who's a published poet, and she was therefore a hippie, basically.
Right.
And she was like, hey, this guy is in the wrong class, but how many of you want to vote? Let's have a vote to see if he can stay. Is it you guys okay with this beginner being in our advanced poetry class? And everybody said, yay, because they're all hippies. But it was the biggest mistake they ever made. I was an idiot. So like my poems were fucking horrible. I thought poems were when you just took you said something in regular words, then you got like a thesaurus and just substituted a big word for every word that was a normal word. And that was a poem. And this woman had to suffer through just the worst poems you could ever imagine from me. And she was just obviously disgusted. I mean, and I also just rarely showed up to class, and she had been nice enough to let me be in the class, and I didn't even come to it. But then to graduate from the class or to get my credit, I had to submit my portfolio of poems that I had written over the semester, which, after I realized I wasn't very good at poetry, I stopped doing it, even though I was in a poetry class. So like, I really didn't have a portfolio, but I had to fake one, like the poems I've been writing all along. Well, I wrote them all in one night. Mm-hmm. But at 3:00 in the morning in the computer center, writing on an Apple IIe with a hard disk, I fucking accidentally forgot all my preconceptions about writing. I ended up in a space where because of just exhaustion and desperation, accidentally started writing without any regard for what I had previously thought a poem was supposed to be. And I actually fucking had a breakthrough by mistake, because I started reading what I was writing and I was like, oh my God, poetry is not about like taking a preconception and then trying to fit into it. It's about, and that's what I loved about Bukowski. He would write a poem, quote unquote, that was like, just like completely like, I don't know, instructions on how to bet on horses, but not, poetic. I just, all of a sudden I realized poetry is about, the fun of poetry is it can be anything. You can write a rock, not Iraq. A rock. And you can call that poem rock. And you know what? That's okay. It doesn't mean it means anything. It doesn't mean it's great. It doesn't mean, but it's better than you sitting down with a quill pen, taking the weight of William Wordsworth and Sylvia Plath and whoever else you imagine you want to be like. And then when you try and write something, it comes out like some kind of half-assed Declaration of Independence or something. Mm-hmm. So you really, I accidentally, and I'm grateful for Elizabeth Libby putting up with just my horrendous poetry and general lack of studiousness. And that she herself, when she got corrected my poems, she said like, she actually was like, some of these are good. And she was like mad. But it was huge, it was huge. I realized, oh, fuck. To write good poetry, you kind of clean out your mind. You don't load it up.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a different way of doing something if you're trying to stick to a template. And even then, when you let go of that, it can kind of be difficult. That's something with the podcast. Like I'm really enjoying the fact that I can kind of just like. It doesn't have to just be like interviews or me like basically reading essays that I've written or whatever. Like I can make it an art project. I can make original music for this podcast, which by the way, that's something I haven't told the last couple guests this, but that's my gimmick with this podcast is that for each guest, I have been making a like 30 to 60 second piece of original theme music to introduce their interviews. So you're going to have an original song in the episode.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Well, I'm starting a podcast called Cold Brew Got Me Like, but it's just been, we've been having such, we wanted to, my friend John Burr, who also hosts a couple other podcasts, but I think they're basketball podcasts. So I forget what they're called, but he has the idea to do it on Zoom. So it's just been kind of complicated, but I mean, not Zoom, Twitch. It's just been kind of like a complicated thing. And, but there's going to be a podcast and it's going to be called Cold Brew Got Me Like, sadly.
It's a great title. Yeah.
Well, that's John was like, you got to do it because of the merchandising opportunities. Because I was like, well, let's call it the Chris Crofton Show. And he was like, no. You got to do Cold Brew Got Me Like, you can sell shit. No one wants fucking shit with your name on it. So I used to have a podcast called the Chris Crofton Show. And it fell off the internet because I'm a technical idiot and I don't know how to get back on. So it's gone forever. But I did 200 episodes of it. And It's pretty great. We'll probably put it up eventually. Like maybe I'll do some kind of thing where you can listen to them if you pay $5, like some kind of Patreon thing. So I have extra content I can put on a Patreon because that's my idea, is to try and make a living off of Patreon. I mean, I've set up a Patreon. I haven't launched it. But anyway, that's my plan, is to have a podcast and sort of do the poetry and the music and everything all in one place, at the Patreon kind of, because I'm getting older and I don't want to work in restaurants anymore. And I feel like maybe I feel like I have enough of a body of work or, different bunch of things I do that maybe I could put them under a Patreon umbrella and have some success and sell, sell merchandise and stuff. I mean, I know it's not a new concept, but for me, I'm not technically, I'm trying to engage with this new reality and I do need to make a living somehow. So.
Well, I mean, you're a multi-talented artist. So, like, actually, I first heard you on the Daily Zeitgeist, and I just assumed you were just a stand-up. And then I looked you up on iTunes and found your album. And when the piano, I think the first track starts with piano. It's like, oh, is this going to be like some joke song or whatever? And then like I'm just listening to it. I'm like, no, this is actually really good. And then I listened to the whole thing, and I was like, oh, there was never any stand-up on that. But wound up found on an album I really liked. So.
The music was my first love, and then I've always been funny just by, I don't know, I'm not sure, probably related to trauma, but no, I think I came out of the womb sort of a little bit odd, but like music was my favorite thing, and that's what I wanted to be. I just sort of started shifting into a stand-up because I just couldn't figure out how to get a label. And then all that stuff sort of came to me when I got sober, and I made this. But obviously the best record I ever made was Hello, It's Me. I mean, it's focused. I was not drunk. I chose the songs. I chose the tone. It wasn't this belligerent album of heavy metal and ballads on the same record because I thought people needed to learn a lesson about different types of music and all kinds of nonsense that drunk people think about teaching people lessons and stuff out of resentment, So I just I got lucky and then Alyssa from Arrowhawk Records, she loved the record and she said she would work as a publicist when she said, I'll be the publicist for this record whenever you get a label and, you could pay me. But that was a triumph because I knew she was a really good publicist and she wouldn't work with something she didn't like. But then 2 years later, she called me in 2018 or 17 and said, do you have a label? And I said, no. And she said, I'll put it out, And then I got a Pitchfork review and I got a fucking NPR review and, all these things that I'd been jealous and resentful of for all these years, came to me because I was acting like a human. I mean, I just was anyway, I can't emphasize enough. If you really need to get sober, it's a beautiful thing. It's very hard in the first year, but if you can get past that, the rewards are pretty spectacular.
Well, I mean, a success story of that type is probably something a lot of my listeners would like to hear, especially in these times. And I recommend the same things. And like I was saying, I think that doing either, something live on Twitch or maybe a combination of, your musical skills with your comedic stuff and having these, chats, recording interviews with people. If you ever want some help with some of the technical aspects, I'd be glad to at least try to help out.
Thanks.
I don't have a job right now, so I'm kind of working toward trying the same thing. I have 2 Patreon supporters now, so
that's great. Congratulations. No, this is cool. I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing it with the music and everything.
Yeah, and I'll send you a message on Instagram about this, but I don't know what the copyright deal is. I'd like to play like a song at the end of the episode. Maybe it might help promote the album a little bit. Obviously, I recommend it to people all the time. It's really one of the few new pieces of music I found that I really, really love recently in the past few years. But
I'm so glad. I mean, it was really, I'm very proud of it. I was very surprised at my own ability while I was making it because it was a new me, because it was sober me. And, so I was surprised by how nice some of that stuff came out, not just sonically, but just lyrically, like a song like Numbers Game or something like that. I mean, I just, I didn't know I had that in me in a way. you know, I mean, not that it's a masterpiece, but it's just for me melodically and things like that was stuff I aspired to. And I kind of like was able to do it when I wasn't fucked up. When I was fucked up, it was very hard for me to, you know, make artistic decisions that were measured, I guess. Like I didn't have a lot of room in my personality for like editing and things like that. You know, it's like you just kind of tend to go with the seat of your pants when you're drinking because, well, that's all you get. You're too fucking fucked up to get more than one idea. So you go with the first thing you think of, you know? So I'm very happy with that record. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, should be very, very proud. Yeah.
I'm so excited for people to hear the new one because it's fucking better. I mean, it's right insane, but it's really, this one's a little just, it's not just about heartbreak and drinking. This one's about like all kinds of shit, but it's mostly heartbreak and drinking.
I'm very excited to hear it. I guess we can end on this. I'd like to have you back again sometime if you'd be willing to.
Hell yeah.
This is the thing that I thought might launch us off into various directions. So I'm glad we were able to get to all this stuff. But just real quick, one of my favorite things about your appearances on the Daily Zeitgeist is you talking about your YouTube rabbit holes. Anything lately you found? My girlfriend and I actually, we probably watch about 80% of what we watch is either like political or like pop culture at video essays on YouTube and stuff. A lot of Sam Cedar, you know, majority.
I watch a lot of Majority Report,
left media and whatnot, but we also will watch the urban exploration videos. And that before you were on the Daily Zeitgeist talking about it, we somehow stumbled upon that channel with that weird guy opening cans. And so anything like the magnet fishing, the metal detecting, any sort of interesting stuff.
I feel bad for that guy. You know, the New England Wildlife and Morris he can't get, I don't know if you've been watching him lately, but since the pandemic, he hasn't been able to go to estate sales where that's turns out where he gets all his old food. In the pandemic, people have been having estate sales. So he's had to like resort to like just ordering exotic current products. Like he orders goat meat from Russia or something and like, you know, tries that, but it's like, you know, it's not old goat meat. It's just regular new goat meat. So he's like having a crisis, which is also interesting. Which also makes his channel interesting because I just like the way that guy talks. So yeah, lately, like the last couple of days, I've spent almost all day, every day with hockey fights from the 1980s. If you go on YouTube and look up hockey fights, there's one guy named his last name's Probert. Probert, and I guess he was like the most like notorious enforcer in the NHL in like the early 80s, and I never even heard of him before. But you can watch an hour and 58 minutes of Probert having fights, and it's just all cut together and it's kind of grainy, and I just like that shit running in the background like it's an AM radio station or something. Like every time I look up, there's just a hockey fight going on from the 80s, and I really enjoy that. I like abandoned mine exploration. I used to make fun of abandoned mine exploration, but I've gotten pretty fucking into abandoned mine exploration, even though they only find the same three things over and over again, like old pieces of dynamite, like ore carts, and then they just like figure out whether it's an old ore cart or a new ore cart, which is, you know, technically really boring, but I really enjoy it. And also I just think the people doing it are so uncharismatic that I think it's really funny. Like they don't have any jokes or anything. They're just like, oh, look at that. They just say, look at that over and over again. Oh, look at that. Look at that. I mean, that's just it. So I've been like watching a lot of hockey fights, a lot of mine exploration, a lot of mudlarking. I watched drag racing from the 70s. Like you can watch if you put in like drag racing mishaps. I kind of like watching mishaps. I don't know why. I've always been interested in, you know, like some guy whose parachute didn't open. I want to watch that because I feel like that's all of us. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like it's like getting me ready for death. You know, it's like ultimately we're all going to get knocked out by Probert.
The personalities of these the people on the YouTube channels that do the odd sorts of things that you know you were talking about with the miner or the mine exploration.
Abandoned Mines, yeah.
I haven't watched any of those, but
they're so good. They're so bad, and then eventually they become addictive. Like it's just like there's two guys trying to decide whether a ladder is safe. That's like my kind of YouTube. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
Fucking funny.
I don't know why. Like, that's I can get sucked into that same sort of. One of my favorite observations that you made about the guy opening old cans was that how it always seems like he's going to do something science-y with it, but he never does.
And when he does, it doesn't even, he just puts it under a microscope and says, there it is.
Yeah.
Which is all, he's like, and I don't know what that stuff is, but there it is. And it's big.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's
weird.
That guy is, I would feel worse if I thought I was making fun of someone with like a real mental problem, but he's in on the joke to some extent, but he's also just odd enough that it makes it fun because the way he talks is, and the way he conducts this endless investigation of cans as if it's like important in some way. It's just, that just blows me away. I mean, he's on this constant quest to like establish whether a can is held up well or didn't hold up well. And no one gives a fuck really outside of him, but he treats it like it's a major thing. Well, it turns out this can's actually in pretty good shape. And that's what usually happens is like surprisingly. Let me put it this way. He's always saying how the can is in surprisingly good shape. So if it's in surprisingly good shape every time, then it's not surprising.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just in the shape an old can is in.
Yeah.
Which is usually pretty fucking good because it's a can.
Yeah. That's like the whole
anyway,
thing, right?
Yes. And then he also has, I don't know if you know this, but he put a couple of hamburgers in jars, like fast food hamburgers, and just left them there for like a year. And like, since he's running out of shit to do because he can't get any old food at estate sales, he's just like pads out his shows with like all of a sudden they'll just be like, here's a hamburger I put in a jar a year ago. It's like, I just loved it. It's like, that's content. He's like, oh fuck, I know how I can. Shit, I don't have enough old canned food to have an episode. Oh wait, what about those 2 burgers I put in the garage? So anyway, also he says like one of the burgers is completely gelatinous, unrecognizable, and the other is in pretty bad shape. That's the one from Burger King. That looks more like a hamburger than the McDonald's one. The McDonald's one has turned into something unrecognizable. And you're just like, what? I just love it. I don't know why, but pandemic times, man, I want to know that he's got a couple of like old burgers on the back burner. Oh shit. He's like, oh shit, I forgot about that Twix bar I put in a autoclave or whatever.
Yeah. The characters themselves
he's
being
fucking
more
crazy.
interesting than the
so
content.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's called New England Wildlife and More. I mean, talk about burying the lead. I can never get over that. It's like, no, it's and more and maybe some wildlife. There's no, just call it opening old cans. What do you mean New England Wildlife and More?
I guess
get out of here.
He probably at some point just like posted a video just like of him opening an old can and it got like a bunch of views and was like, oh, I guess this is what I do now.
Yes, it's like me with Cold Brew Got Me Like.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I used to be a musician. Now I'm just a fucking meme generator, but hey. You got to follow the audience.
Yeah, follow what's
read the room.
Possible. Yeah, for sure. Well, before your phone dies, I guess is there anything else you want to add? Something you'd like people to know about you or anything like that? Or, we can pick back up talking about weird YouTube stuff if we, speak again sometime in the future.
Yeah. No, just follow me on at the Crofton Show on Twitter, Chris_Crofton on Instagram, and maybe most importantly, check out the record Hello It's Me on all the platforms. It's called Hello It's Me. It came out in 2018. It's kind of my homage to 70s singer-songwriters, which are some of my favorite people. And read my Advice King, which is an advice column I've been doing for 6 years for the Nashville scene. The most recent one is called I think it's called Succumbing to Cynicism, and it's one of my favorites. So that's about it. And Kevin, thank you so fucking much, and it's been really a pleasure. And we've hit some. I mean, I love these things because I find out stuff that I really learn stuff while I'm talking. So this has been great, and I'm really grateful for your support.
Well, I'm really grateful for you being so, generous with your time and just for coming on in the first place. Very cool for me because, I have heard you on the Daily Zeitgeist a few times, and you are one of my favorite guests.
Thanks. That's been such a gift. The Daily Zeitgeist has been such a fucking gift. I mean, who knew? When I went on that thing, I didn't even know what it was. And it's been such a fucking gift. The fans of the Daily Zeitgeist are some of the nicest people I've ever encountered. And I'm really, really grateful to Jack and Miles and Anna. Anna was the one who got me on there to begin with, and it really changed my life. I've got all these great people in my life now because of it. It's really fun.
Well, that's so great to hear, and those guys are awesome and
nice people too. Just really, they were nice right off the bat. Man, they got a kick out of me, right? I mean, they didn't know anything about me. Anna just booked me because she liked my stand-up, and we were friends, from when she used to produce comedy shows. So I went in there, Jack and Miles had no idea who the fuck I was. And I really didn't exactly know who they were either. But then we immediately had so much fun talking about metal detecting. It was just, it was wonderful. And those guys are very open and very genuine. And that's why that show's good.
Yeah, no, it always sounds like y'all are having a blast when you go
it's
on
so
there.
Fun.
And I
dig those guys.
Easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Dudes.
And Jamie Loftus and Billy Wayne Davis and I knew about Blair Saki already, but God, I love Blair Saki so much. Anyway, thank you.
My first guest on this podcast was Christy Yamaguchi Mane himself.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that guy. Oh my God, he's a man who he probably just like my cold brew got me. He was probably well, I'll just do one of these AKAs. It probably won't take over my life. Cut to.
Pretty much has. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in knowing more about him, the first 2 episodes are interviews with him. So.
Great.
But
well, I'll promote this as soon as Kevin. As soon as this comes out, you let me know, and I'll promote the hell out of it.
Absolutely.
It's been a really fun conversation.
Probably going to split it into 2 parts. And sure. I had an awesome time talking to you. Thank you so much for being generous with your time.
Of course.
Like I said.
Thank you so much.
I guess this will be part 2, and I'll say so I don't have to record an intro. Now we're gonna play. We're gonna write out on a song from Hello, It's Me. Do you have a preference for which one we'd like to play?
No, my favorite song is probably It's All My Fault.
Okay. Well,
but,
I guess
I don't care. I'm proud of all of them. I like Numbers Game a whole lot.
Numbers Game, All My Fault, UFO Hunters, Hello, It's Me is a
UFO
great
Hunters.
song.
I love. Yeah, that UFO Hunters was the reason I wrote the record. I mean, I wrote that song and I was like, oh, this is a good song. And then I was like, I should make a record. It just was and I wrote that song I had just gone through a breakup, and I was watching Recently Sober, and I was watching UFO Hunters on fucking whatever channels that's on, History Channel.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, hey, these guys are just like me, except they're lonely. I'm lonely for a relationship, and they're lonely for little green men.
Yeah. Next time we'll talk about all that weird Oak Island History Channel.
Oh hell
shit.
Yeah! Oak Island, I could talk about for the rest of my life.
Okay, well I'll make sure and front load those questions next time.
Yeah, Oak Island is one of my favorite things in the world.
Well, you have a wonderful day, and I'll let you know when this is up.
Hey, thanks so much, Kevin. Seriously, have a great time,
Chris. Have a wonderful day. Later.
You too. Bye.
Magnet fishing, chill, magnet fishing, chill, magnet fishing, chill, magnet fishing, nickel white, magnet, mudlark, nickel white, mudlark, chill, nickel white, mudlark, nickel white, mudlark, chill.
Politicians are not qualified to be political.
Let me ride, burn my eyes.
All right, folks, hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris Crofton. How could you not have? It was beautiful, right? He is just 100% delightful every second of every moment he is on this earth. And I love him and can't wait to have him back on the show again. Thanks so much for coming on, Chris. I have been Haas Bossman, and this has been Breadsheet. Follow Chris on Twitter at The Crofton Show. Follow him on Instagram at Chris_Crofton. Download his album Hello It's Me off iTunes, Spotify, all the streaming places. You can get it there. It's fantastic. I'm going to play us out with a song from that, and I haven't decided which song yet, so probably a robot voice is going to say which song it is here.
Numbers Game from the album Hello, It's Me by Chris Crofton, which got to 7-point-something from Pitchfork and a good NPR review. One of my favorite albums to come out in recent years. For reals. Go buy it on Apple Music and Spotify and stuff.
And yeah, I've been Haas Bossman. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Haas_Bossman. Support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Haas_Bossman. Search YouTube for Haas Bossman and watch my fun, crazy, sometimes somewhat smart-brained YouTube videos. And make sure that every person you see for the next several days, you hug with your eyes. Don't hug them with your body. It's a pandemic we're going through here, and you don't want to do that because you might get everybody sick and more people will die. But also, you don't want to just hug people because they might have like strangers just coming up and touching them out of nowhere. So don't be rude, and don't be weird. But also, don't hug them with your eyes. That's probably not a great idea. Just emit healing light. You know the drill, folks. I've been Haas Bossman. Love you guys. Oh, make sure you come back next week for my interview with Mr. David Griscom. Bye.
I had 100 thoughts today, 50 about when you went away, 50 about what I'm supposed to do today without you, without you. I took 1,000 steps today, 500 toward your garden gate, 500 right back home again without you, without you. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game without you, without you. I cried 97 teardrops today. That's one more than yesterday. I catch 'em all on a silver tray without you, without you. I watch TV all day today. Channels 2, 7, 8, 9, 48. All kinds of numbers without you, without you. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game without you, without you. When we met, I was alone, and I was used to it. If I was sad, I didn't know. Then I fell for you, and now if I can't have you back, I'm gonna pack my things and leave this town without you. I had 10,000 dreams last night of your face bathed in heavenly light. And every single song I write's about you, about you. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game.
That will be William, a local pipe maker.
Pipe stem, only a pipe stem, leftover conduit, tossed and misfortunate. Pipe stem, only a pipe stem, broken accessory. Not even a memory. Pipe stem, made from earth and ash and clay. I bear my maker's name. Drawing smoke between long drafts of gin. I've touched the lips of gentlemen, Londoners of fame, then broken by the hands of ardent men. Pipe stem, only a pipe stem, leftover conduit, tossed and misfortunate. Pipe stem, only a pipe stem, broken accessory, not even a memory. Pipe stem.
Now look at this. This is really funny. It's part of a clay pipe. Well, a tiny fragment, but what's amazing, what's